Welcome to Memorial Day version of the OU Insider YouTube Live. My name is Brandon Drumm. I'm here with Parker Thune, and sorry about the 2-week hiatus, but we're back. We're going to get back on schedule now, and we're ready to talk some Oklahoma football with you. Can't wait to talk a lot of things going on. You got ChampU BBQ, a lot of camps going on. You got spring football for high school. I was in Florida. Parker's been all around the state of Oklahoma. We're going to continue to do all that over the next week or so. So we've got a lot of stuff coming for you guys on OU Insider. Can't wait to get to all that. But Parker, did you do anything for Memorial Day? I've watched Top Gun twice now. I went with my wife in Dallas, and now I took my kids tonight. Love the movie. Big Top Gun fan when I was a kid, and it definitely lived up to its billing. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, well, Brandon, for me, this is about the time of year. Memorial Day is kind of the unofficial start to the summer months, isn't it? Even though the first day of summer isn't technically till mid-June, you really start to feel like once Memorial Day hits, it's summer. And, for me, that's the time of the year where I usually like to get outside, get active, go play golf, go on walks, just generally spend time in the sun, spend time in the elements, and really haven't been able to do much of that as of late, ever since I had that broken elbow a couple of weeks back. So that's been an interesting adventure, trying to get back up to 100% physically and get to the point where I can hold a telephoto lens again. I had a splint on this elbow for a week or so. I have it off right now, but I'm not going to show it because I'm not trying to turn this into a grotesque show and tell, but I do got a real ugly bruise and some swelling still on the underside of my elbow. So still being a little ginger with it, but hopefully going to be back up close to full tilt physically by the time that the OU camps roll around later in this week. And then obviously with the Dallas mega camps coming around again this weekend, it's about to be another busy season for us. So really ill-timed incident with the elbow, which occurred mountain biking up in Arkansas. But, at the end of the day, what can you do? You survive in advance, as they say.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of, there's been a lot of things that, kids announcing that they're going to be taking visits, whether it's on June 10th, whether it's on June 1st or 2nd or 3rd. I mean, you've got 5-star edge rusher Colin Simmons coming in on the 1st. I mean, you've got a horde of 2024 guys either coming in, 1st or 2nd, and then you've got them coming in on the 8th, 9th, and 10th. I mean, there's a lot of things going on. And on top of that, you have big visit weekends, whether it's the ChampU BBQ, whether it's the 10th, where you got, Colton Vasek and a couple other guys showing up that weekend. I mean, there's a lot of things going on with Oklahoma recruiting right now. And I'm sure some OU fans have some questions on where things stand with certain players and all that type of stuff. But I guess, what are you looking for, from Oklahoma in the month of June? I think for me, it's got to be, they got to close out on some of the guys, whether it's a couple of 3-star, 4-star, 5-star talents that are going to be announcing, whether it's they announce early, whether they announce in July, whether they announce in August. That's why they're visiting Oklahoma. Players that aren't announcing until, December, January, February, November, October, they're not taking visits at Oklahoma in June or July. They're going to wait and get those guys to come in on games a la, David Hicks, a la Derek LeBlanc, even though Derek LeBlanc's going to be back for the ChampU BBQ, and David Hicks was just in town again, hanging out with, Todd Bates and all that. But they were unofficial visits. We're talking official visits. Oklahoma is going to be hosting quite a few of those throughout the month of June. I think close to 30 for the ChampU BBQ. It's something absurd. So I guess, what are you looking forward to in the month of June, July, August for Oklahoma? And what's your expectations for for that. I mean, for me, I think you have to be double digits in commits by the end of July. Is that fair? I mean, I don't know.
I would agree with that. And I think the commits are going to start rolling this weekend at or immediately after the ChampU BBQ. I think that's a fair expectation to have. And I think a month or so ago, we set the over under at 2.5 commits within a week of the ChampU BBQ. And I would say right now there's a compelling case for the under. There's a compelling case for the over. That's a pretty solid line there. But one way or another, I do think the Sooners are going to come out on the other side of this official visit weekend in way better position to land several elite 2023 prospects. And they could potentially close on some of them as soon as the barbecue weekend itself. They could have another couple commits by this time next week. As I'm looking at the official visitors that are going to be in town over the next couple of weeks, a couple that I'm really keeping an eye on, obviously Jacoby Johnson. I mean, it feels like he's one of those kids where we've been waiting for him to commit for months, years, even, because it's been pretty obvious almost right from the get-go that Oklahoma was the clear front runner in his recruitment. PJ Adebawore, the 4-star edge rusher out of North Kansas City, that's another kid that I wonder if he doesn't just go ahead and pull the trigger on the visit, because he is already very pro OU. He's made it no secret that he knows what he wants. He's narrowed his recruitment to 4 schools: Northwestern, OU, Georgia, Iowa. Everybody around that kid knows that Oklahoma is the front runner at this point in time. And it makes me wonder whether he ends up taking the official visit to Georgia that he's scheduled for June 10th. I think there's a very good chance he just calls it after the ChampU BBQ. OU's in that good of a position with PJ Adebawore. Brand new offer last night. I'm very curious to see how this recruitment unfolds. Kade Mcintyre, 3-star athlete out of Fremont, Nebraska. This is one that's fun for me, Brandon, because obviously I'm a native Nebraskan, but I went to a small high school, the likes of which Kade Mcintyre attends. Archbishop Bergen, his high school, actually plays in the same conference that I played in as a high school athlete. And so he's literally in the same conference, Class C2 in Nebraska, that I grew up in, which, I graduated with 85 people. Generally the class, the Class C2 in Nebraska has not produced a whole lot of high-end football talent historically. So the fact that this kid's hit it big and picked up an offer from Oklahoma is super intriguing. And it's super meaningful to him and his family, because his mom's whole side of the family, although they do hail from Nebraska, they're Oklahoma fans. And there is a very significant tangible affinity for Oklahoma that runs through that family's bloodlines. And so what makes it all the more meaningful for Kade is that his grandfather actually just passed. And the offer from Oklahoma came less than 24 hours after his funeral. And he was the family member that really kind of started the OU love. He was the original Oklahoma Sooner. So that meant a ton to the family. Within an hour of Kade Mcintyre getting the offer, he had already scheduled a June 8th official visit to Oklahoma, which will be his first. That makes me wonder, Brandon, if McIntyre ends up making any of his subsequent officials, because he's booked trips to Iowa and Kansas State and Minnesota, but doesn't take a Rhodes Scholar to look at his offer sheet and say, okay, Oklahoma's the biggest fish.
One sticks out. Yeah.
Yeah. What's even more intriguing about the situation is that Oklahoma has offered him as a pure athlete. Almost every single other school that has recruited McIntyre has offered him as a linebacker. Oklahoma has said, we don't know what you're going to be. We just want you here. That could be a wide receiver. That could be a tight end. That could be at linebacker. With where Oklahoma's at right now in this cycle and the prospects that they're currently pursuing, I'm actually inclined to believe that McIntyre may end up at tight end. That may be Oklahoma's ultimate vision for a guy like him, because they've got Caleb Spencer committed. He's going to play linebacker at the next level. If you've watched that kid's tape, you know he's a linebacker. Everything about him screams linebacker. The Sooners are very clearly in the driver's seat for Samuel Masigo, and they're also very clearly in the driver's seat for Phil Picciotti. So right there, you got 3 linebackers that Oklahoma is in the catbird seat to go ahead and secure. One of 3 is already secured. And so if they get Omasigo and they get Picciotti, you don't really need a whole lot else at the linebacker position. That's not to say that McIntyre couldn't become a fourth linebacker, but on the flip side, you look at what Oklahoma's recruiting at the tight end position. They're in the lead for Reed Mikeska right now. That's not quite as stable as you'd like it to be. Florida and Miami are very much in the mix but Oklahoma is kind of considered the odds-on favorite. But what does Joe John Finley historically look for in every recruiting class with his tight ends? Looks for a blocking first, big-bodied guy, Jason Llewellyn last year, and he looks for kind of a hybrid tight end, wide receiver, super athletic prospect who can stretch the field, Caden Helms last year. Now, Oklahoma kind of pinpointed a guy that fit the Helms mold in Malachi Coleman, another prospect from the state of Nebraska, and Mikeska, in a sense, is your next Llewellyn. But as of late, it seemed less and less certain that Oklahoma is going to be even in the peloton for Coleman, because he's got a lot of interest in Michigan. He's got a lot of interest in Oregon. USC just offered. And while Sooner fans are going to hate to hear that one, that is a school that very much appeals to Malachi Coleman. So right now, Oklahoma has some work to do if they even want to get an official visit for Malachi Coleman. They're going to host him unofficially on June 10th. They'll have a chance to make a move. But right now, you don't look at the board at tight end and say, okay, Oklahoma's clearly in the lead for this guy with anybody except Mikeska. So to me, there's a almost equal, if not greater chance that McIntyre ends up at tight end than he does at linebacker, because he had something like 975 receiving yards, 14 receiving touchdowns last year for Fremont Bergen. He's very capable as a pass catcher, and he's got speed. He's 6'4", 205 pounds. He's not built quite as heavily as Mikeska, so he fits the mold of somebody like Helms more so than Mikeska does. And if you were to get those two, McIntyre and Mikeska, that's your thunder and lightning. That's your next Jason Llewellyn and your next Caden Helms. That fits the blueprint of what Joe John Finley has tried to do recruiting the tight end position. So I'm almost inclined to believe that McIntyre becomes a tight end. And I think that's why Oklahoma is pushing the athlete designation on him right now, because you'd like to leave the door open somewhat at the tight end position in case you make a surge for a guy like Olsen Henry, 4-star out of the state of Florida, Marcus Dixon out of Pennsylvania, Jackson McGowan, fast rising tight end out of the state of Ohio. But in McIntyre, if you lock him down, and I think there's a good chance that the Sooners do very expediently here, you have a guy that can be a plug and play option anywhere. He can be a Swiss Army knife in this class. If you come up a little bit short at linebacker, slide him to defense. If you don't end up closing on any of your tight end targets except Mikeska, well, he becomes your answer at tight end.
Well, I mean, so you're with me though. You think Jacoby Johnson, and obviously, who was the other guy? I nailed down. People asked me the other day, who do you think is going to be, the next three commits in the 2023 class? And this is all just me guessing. But I said Adebawore, I said Jacoby Johnson, and I think I threw, I don't remember. I may have said Cole Adams, but I think I was just kind of guessing at that point. I don't think I really feel like Cole Adams is going to be that guy. I would say Caden Green. That would be my third guy if I was going to go down that route right now. And, that's when's he supposed to announce? Like July 8th. 8th, right? 8th. Does it actually get to that point? Does he wait that long?
Yes.
He does.
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
But here's what I'll add with regard to offensive line. I just put a note up on OU Insider VIP about this kid, 4-star offensive lineman out of the state of Tennessee in Bryson Sanders. Mm-hmm. That's the guy that OU's in sneaky good position for. And his last official visit is the ChampU BBQ. So Oklahoma has a chance to make the final impression. And Sanders has told me, he's told other folks, he's waiting till June 23rd at the very latest. That may not happen. That may not happen, right? It may not take that long at all. He has conceded that I may make my decision before then. And right now, I'm just letting y'all know, He is a very slight Ole Miss lean for the time being, but Oklahoma looms very large. And it's a tight race between those three schools. When you look at the fact that he's already taken his OVs to Ole Miss and to Tennessee, Oklahoma has more of an opportunity than the others to distinguish themselves from the competition. So I will be watching the Bryson Sanders situation very closely heading into the weekend.
Here the crazy thing is, speaking of offensive line of the 2023 class, is Oklahoma's sneaky good position for several guys. Like, nobody talks about Wilkins Formby very much, and it's because he lives in Tuscaloosa. But I talked to some people in Alabama, and they're like, dude, that is not a guarantee, like, to go to Alabama. And the reason they say that is because they're not sure if Alabama's actually pushing very hard. So if you get a Wilkin Formby, you already got Joshua Bates locked in, you get Caden Green to lock in, say you get Logan Howland and Bryson Sanders, that would be one heck of a class for Oklahoma. Like, literally would be one of the better offensive line classes in the country. If you can roll that over to the other side and Oklahoma somehow ends up with, Adebawore, they end up with, maybe a Derek LeBlanc. I know, Caden McDonald. Trying to think who else they could possibly end up with in that class. I know people are going to say DJ Hicks. No, I think in the long run, Oklahoma has a really good chance of landing, but I'm not going to say that, on May 30th. Like, that's just not where my head's at right now. I think it's kind of a split between A&M and Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma made a really good impression on him over the weekend, and I think that's going to sustain them because he doesn't have plans on making very many trips to A&M unofficially. He says maybe one or two, but he'll make what he makes to A&M. You can almost guarantee he's going to make it to Oklahoma as well. And then when you add the officials, those type of things kind of even out, and you never know where you go from there. Trying to think of it, Amari Washington's a guy that Oklahoma is like, nobody really talks about him, and he's a 4-star defensive lineman out of Arizona. But Oklahoma's been like pressing really hard on him, like really, really hard. And I know Todd Bates was out there to see him a couple of times. So, who knows? He's taking an official visit for the ChampU BBQ. I'm telling you, I still think Oklahoma on the offense and defensive line, this is probably going to be their best cumulative haul on both sides that they've had in a bit, and that's saying something because that 2021 class was pretty good as far as O-line and D-line goes. Last year, offensive line was kind of short, but they didn't have a lot of spots anyways. But the guys that got there really good, and Sexton and Taylor, so the Jake brothers. I don't know, Parker, if you could, that haul that I named, like, for me, I think it's a realistic haul for Oklahoma with those 5 on the offensive line. Do you still feel that way?
I do. Here's what I would say about
Formby's the one I'm kind of like, more than anybody else.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You get so many of these guys on campus all at the same time, there's a real good chance you come out with at least 1 or 2. So even if you don't sweep on all of them, just think about for a moment all the offensive tackles that are going to be in town this weekend. You got Caden Green on campus. You got Bryson Sanders on campus. Logan Howland's going to be there. Wilkin Formby's going to be there. And Jaden Chapman is going to be there. If you get 2 out of those 5, and you got Peyton Kirkland announcing in July, and you got a very good chance to land him as well, that's a really solid core of offensive linemen in this class. That gives you 4. And, if you come out with a coup and you get 3 of 5 that are on campus this weekend, then that gives you 5, and you feel really, really good about the haul there. With regard to Amari Washington, the thing that makes me hesitant about Oklahoma, and I do think it's significant and worth paying attention to, that he is on an official visit to Oklahoma this coming weekend. The thing that makes me hesitant is that he is high school teammates with Dylan Raiola, and he's got an offer from Ohio State and is being very heavily pursued by Ohio State. So kind of waiting to see how things develop between him and the Buckeyes before I get too optimistic about Oklahoma's chances.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I guess the fact that he's taking an official visit is why I always tell everybody, if they're taking an official visit or if they've taken multiple unofficial visits, you follow the visits, and they're generally very serious about the program. If they're going to spend that, that much time and effort trying to get, a deep dive look into what maybe they're going to be, going to be a part of the program over the next few years, and, trying to figure out if they feel they fit. So as far as ChampU BBQ visitors that are kind of out there, and ones that, and we didn't name Peyton Kirkland, which, I talked about the fact on OU Insider when I went down and visited him in Florida. He's a guy I really do think Oklahoma's in a really good spot with. His mom is moving to Houston, he says, in February. And I think if you look at that and you don't feel like that gives Oklahoma a better chance, I think you're kind of crazy. Number one. Number two, I'm not saying he ends up at Oklahoma, because I think that that's still kind of a stretch to say that at this point. But everything that he says and does in regards to Oklahoma, I think you got to feel somewhat confident about it if you're an OU fan. Now, you don't want to go out and say, oh, it's 100% going to happen, because it's going to end up kicking you right in the ball sack, and you're going to wish you never did that. And you're going to be hurting because of it. But if, emotionally hurting and, figuratively, physically, if somebody actually does that to you. But I like where Oklahoma stands with him. I mean, of the guys that I visited in Florida, I really came away going, man, Oklahoma is going to be a tough out for Peyton Kirkland. And there's a lot of people that feel that way down in Florida too. Now, they think he ends up at Florida, but there's a lot of people that didn't know his mom was moving to Houston either. And I think that was kind of a shock to a lot of people. And that makes things a little bit more interesting when it comes to his recruitment. But for you, that's kind of my outsider guy, for Oklahoma right now. What would be a guy, if you were to tell Oklahoma fans, you need to watch this guy right now, because you never know where things are going to end up with? Who would that be?
Well, see, my knee jerk is Bryson Sanders, but I already touched on him. So,
yeah.
And obviously, I kind of tipped my hand with Kade Mcintyre too, whom I did enter NOU crystal ball for last night. After
this is a person you haven't done a crystal ball with, just kind of.
Yeah. I beyond those two, I would say Colton Vasek from Austin Westlake, because
that's a good one.
You talk to anybody.
He's visiting on the 10th, by the way.
Yes, he is.
Yep.
You talk to anybody that knows that kid, you hear one thing and one thing only. That dude wants as far away from Austin as possible. Now, do you interpret that more in a geographical sense, i.e. Oregon or Clemson, both of whom are going to get official visits from Colton Vasek? Okay, maybe. But if you're talking about the diametric opposite of Austin, well, naturally, it's Norman, Oklahoma, right? And the Sooners have already had him on campus twice in 2022. They're going to get him back on campus a third time for an official visit on June 10th. So, man, the Sooners have a sneaky good chance with him too. And you look at that edge board as a whole, the conversation starts and stops with PJ Adebawore, obviously, but they're in it for Vasek. They'll be in it for Job all the way up until he makes a decision, obviously, with his family very pro OU, and with him just
I still
right
think
down the road.
Bama's a leader right now. Bama's a leader right now.
Yeah.
Bama and Georgia.
My optimism about Oklahoma and Job is fading.
Miami.
But that said, they're in it for him. They're also in it for Blake Purchase, a 24/7 Sports 4-star who is also going to be on an official visit this weekend. So, you know what? If the Sooners decide they need to load up on the edge in this class, I think it's very realistic that they could come out of this thing with PJ, whom I think also is big enough and physical enough and has the proper body type where he could ultimately move inside, or at least be a hybrid inside outside guy like Isaiah Thomas was, I think they will end up with him. My crystal ball reflects that, but they very well could also end up with Vosick and Blake Purchase.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would even go as far as to I would say Tyler Turner is an interesting one. He's down to Oregon and Oklahoma. Oregon gets the last visit, so that's always going to be hard to beat. But if Oklahoma can stop that visit from happening with a good official, and I think that's what they're trying to do. So we'll see where that goes. I think another guy for me, as far as kind of a sleeper. I know people keep on saying Smothers in the chat. I'm just like, I think Oklahoma's in a really good spot with him. But I don't know that I would. I'm just not there yet. I would. Man, I've already done Picciotti. I've already put a crystal ball in for him, so he doesn't count. Dadgum, man. Anthony Evans is another guy, but he's starting to blow up, so you never know how that's going to turn out. Really fast wide receiver out of Converse Judson High School. Jalen Kilgore is going to be kind of interesting for me at the safety position, because I think people are looking at South Carolina as the obvious leader, but Georgia hasn't offered yet. They're watching him, and that's kind of what everybody's afraid of with him is, can Oklahoma hold off Georgia if they decide to go all in on Jalen Kilgore? And I don't know that they can. Having said that, does Georgia go all in on Jalen Kilgore is going to be the other, shoe that we have to see if it drops or not. And here's the thing with that is Oklahoma's in a really good spot with Kilgore. He came up for the spring game. He's back again for an official visit. If they can blow him away with this ChampU BBQ weekend and say they get Tyler Turner and Jalen Kilgore, the interesting part about that is Peyton Bowen's supposed to be taking an unofficial at some point, and he's on a vacation right now, so we don't know if he's going to be making it to the ChampU BBQ or not. And will he take an official? Will he not? He says he's going to take one to Oklahoma and A&M. We'll see if that ever happens. But does Oklahoma continue to push for him and make room for Peyton Bowen if that happens and they already land, Tyler Turner and Jalen Kilgore? I think that is going to be the big thing to watch, because I don't know that you can turn that away, especially with Jackson Arnold already on board and them being such good friends. And he's, a potential 5-star quarterback at the end of the day. You gotta play the game a little bit, so we'll see how all that goes. In the 2020, Colin Simmons, there was he didn't really mention Oklahoma very much in a couple of articles, and then he does in some articles, and he mentioned people actually think Oklahoma's kind of the leader, and then some people don't think they're in it at all, because he's kind of all over the place whenever he does interviews and he talks to people, but he keeps showing back up to Norman. I think, and the weird part is Arkansas. Arkansas is the team that he always talks up. Does that last? That's going to be the big question when he starts taking all of his visits. Does Arkansas hold up to the Oklahomas, the Ohio States, the Oregons, the Alabamas of the world, the LSUs, the Georgias? Can they hold off those guys and continue to kind of be the top dog for him? That was a question.
That was a question.
That was literally a question. That was literally a question. Can they? Can they? That would. Well, I would hope that would mean it's a question.
Yeah. Well, no. I thought I was struggling to figure out whether it was a rhetorical question or one addressed directly to me.
It's not rhetorical because I don't know if they can.
Yeah. No. In that regard, I think a lot depends on the 2022 season. To me, that's what
I totally agree.
A lot of Arkansas's recruiting momentum is contingent upon, because they are hot on the trail and have been for some time. But if they don't take another step forward in 2022, because they took a big step forward last year under Sam Pittman. Nobody expected that team to be as successful as they were, especially looking at their schedule preseason. I remember looking over Arkansas's schedule last June or July and going, goodness gracious, they'll be lucky to win 4 games. And they won, 9, including a bowl? So they took a big step up. The question is it going to be a flash in the pan, or is it going to be something that they can sustain? Because in order to cultivate a culture that appeals year in and year out to recruits, you have to have sustained success. And sustained success looks different program to program, right? Sustained success for Alabama in today's day and age looks a lot different than sustained success at Iowa. But you can argue,
right,
based on the expectations that are inherent to both of those programs, they both experience sustained success, and that's something that they can pitch to their recruits. You can't fluctuate. Fluctuation is just, it's almost as detrimental as just being flat out awful, right? Because if you don't know what you're getting into, if you don't know whether you're going to be a part of a 10-win team next year or a 4-win team, you're probably not going to be super eager to sign on with that particular school. So a lot of Arkansas's recruiting momentum will live and die with their 2022 season, I do believe.
I agree with that. I also think that at the end of, like, there's some people that I talk to that are, pretty entrenched in the Colin Simmons recruitment and know it from a different angle than obviously the OU angle. And they're like, that kid's probably going to end up at Norman. Like, that's what they feel. They feel like eventually, especially in 2024, that Venables and his staff are going to, with the relationships that they built, because they're playing catch up, whether OU fans want to believe it or not. Yes, they had relationships with these kids in 2023 before they got to Norman, but they didn't have it on the basis of being in Norman. They had it whether they were in Alabama, whether they're Clemson, South Carolina, or, Troy, Alabama, or Oxford, Mississippi. Those are the type of things that you've got to pay attention to, because they're not, they had to flip it around and say, look, well, this is why I left. Come check out where I am now, and really build the trust back up with these kids. And that takes time, whether the OU fans want to believe that or not. It's not just a snap of the finger. Well, it was with Derek LeBlanc, and obviously we had to do the obligatory, hello to his father, Ricardo, who is probably watching, honestly. He hadn't texted me this time, but usually he does, or he watches it late at night when he gets off work. So, and then he'll text me that he's watching it. But he was one that was going up to Clemson. And I would say that Clemson was in a very, 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 very good spot with LeBlanc at that point in time. And the second that Bates ended up in Norman, the visit ended up in Norman. And I think that was one that was a little different because of the relationship that they had, what Bates had with LeBlanc, dates back to 7th, 8th grade. Like, it's a long distance, like a long-term relationship there. So that's kind of one of those, they're different. And I would say Jackson Arnold with Jeff Levy was another one that was a little different, where it just was organic, change of scenery. Well, okay, I'm going to check you out, coach. All right, I'm going to commit because you're at Oklahoma now instead of Ole Miss. So, those are two outliers, I would say, but obviously LeBlanc hasn't committed yet. And Oklahoma's got a battle with Florida, Miami, a couple other schools for him. So we'll see how all that goes. And when he decides, because he's not set for that July 23rd date, it could happen at any point in time. I was there and he told me it could happen. I could just commit out of the blue, whether I'm he said, whether I'm in Gainesville, whether I'm in Norman, whether I'm in Coral Gables, he goes, I just commit. Doesn't matter. So we'll see how all that happens. I don't know. I think fans need to temper back the expectation of the new staff. Now, I know they see Oregon and all that, but a lot of these other staffs also don't have you can't take visits when you're committed to them rule. And I think people think that that's kind of a hindrance to Oklahoma right now. I think at the end of the day, whether I believe that that's a good move or not, I think as long as you can sell that and you can win doing that, I think Oklahoma is going to end up being okay. I still think they're going to end up with the top 10 class. If you were to guess, how many commits do they have by the end of July?
That's tough because now I'm going through my mental list of, okay, who's definitely going to be committed by then one way or another. I will say they have 12 to 13 commits by the end of July.
13 was mine. 13 was mine.
Okay, I'll say 12. Yep. I'll say 12 then.
Okay. People are asking about
the over under at 12.5. I got the under, you got the over. That's how we'll do it.
It's fun. So here's the thing: is the Florida? I guess Chris Lohman. Appreciate you being on here and watching this, man. He says that I don't know about LeBlanc. UF site is pretty sure they have him all sewn up. Well, I would disagree that the fans may, but I talk to Blake Alderman all the time, and he does have a crystal ball on for him. But at the same time, he also has said Oklahoma is going to be a problem, and if it wouldn't shock him if things ended up with LeBlanc being in Norman. So I don't know that I'm not even there yet because I don't know where he's at. I'm just I have not made a prediction on him yet. I haven't put in a crystal ball. I swore I wouldn't with him anyways. So when I do have a better feeling of where he's going to be, obviously, it'll probably be closer to the decision time, to be honest with you. They also asked about Jordan Renaud, and I visited him, and he's going to take an unofficial to Oklahoma. He's not taking officials, I don't believe, in the month of June. He's got some things he's got to iron out personally, academically. So once all that gets ironed out, he'll be able to take official visits. He's not like somebody everybody needs to worry about whether he's going to be eligible or, anything like that. It's just when you move from school to school, things got to get ironed out as far as credits go. And that's how that's working with him. But he's going to take an unofficial to Oklahoma. I still think Alabama has made a really big surge for him. But he is also a kid that seems to favor the school that he just last visited. So I think Oklahoma will continue to be in a good spot with him, especially since they're going to get an official from him 100% as well. So that is where that stands. I think Oklahoma is in a really, Coach Bates has done a really good job with all these guys. So is Coach Chavis. Do you see any questions on here you want to answer here, Parker?
Somebody asked about the Dylan Edwards situation.
Go for it.
A while back in the chat. At the end of the day, they
Travis Penner.
Yeah, this really is wide open at this point. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. It is wide open. Not to say that Oklahoma is out of it by any stretch of the imagination. Look, he's taking an official visit for the ChampU BBQ. It will be his 4th visit to Oklahoma this calendar year. But it's just been a wacky recruitment, man. One of the weirder ones that I've covered, because you take a look through his top 10, and again, it doesn't take a Rhodes Scholar to look at some of those schools and conclude, okay, those aren't serious considerations. Their mother knows that Dylan Edwards is Kansas. You can say the same for Missouri, but I've said it on the OU Insider VIP board. There is something about Dylan Edwards, and it's hard to explain unless you know him. He's the type of kid that would go to Jackson State. And so when you see Jackson State in his top 10, that makes you a little wary. Obviously, he has said that NIL is going to be a factor in his recruitment. His official visits thus far are just Nebraska and Oklahoma. He visited Nebraska on May 20th. He's visiting Oklahoma for the ChampU BBQ. The other 3 are up in the air. I don't know how heavily Oregon is pursuing him right now because they got a commitment from Dante Dowdle. So they may have backed off. Obviously, I'm trying to dig around right now on the Oregon end to see where things sit between Dylan Edwards and the Ducks. But the schools that he's really serious about right now, I say that, and then immediately it hits me. I'm not really sure whether Dylan Edwards is really serious about any particular school right now. I think he's just riding everything out. And so I don't expect a decision from Edwards imminently. I think it will be at least until August, if I had to guess. I think you're going to be waiting all of June. You may be waiting all of July too. Washington is in the mix. Kansas State, I know nobody wants to hear it. Kansas State remains in the mix. Nebraska is in play, especially because Nebraska is playing the NIL game. And then you got Jackson State, man. It's one of the ones where you're just going to need time to run its course if you really want to be able to cut through the detritus on this recruitment and figure out what's real and what's not. If you had to put money down today, you'd probably put it down on Oklahoma because that's where the safe money is. But I don't think anything's safe in this recruitment at the end of the day. So I would say watch Jackson State, watch Nebraska, and watch Washington, honestly, in addition to Oklahoma. I figure it'll be those 4 at the end of the day that are the peloton for Dylan Edwards, given maybe 6-8 weeks down the road.
Yeah, the NIL stuff, and I think people are talking about that in the chat here. I'm just kind of reading through it. Travis Pinner asked, where do you see Oklahoma in 5 years? Because with the NIL stuff going on, and he says, and Travis said that Venables doesn't use that. Well, I disagree. I think Venables, they are using that one Oklahoma stuff. They're not dumb. I mean, when I talk to recruits, they talk about, the fact that they're going to be making $50,000 to $60,000 a year at Oklahoma through the collective. I mean, that's not something that isn't talked about. It's Oklahoma doesn't want to pinpoint somebody that's all they're about is the money, because that's not going to fit their culture. And so there's a complete difference in not using it and using it for the greater good of your program, for the people that are willing to come in and play for your program, to be a part of the program and not just be all about NIL. And I think that's, I think Oklahoma is competing for national titles in 5 years. I do. I think Venables has the defense where it needs to be. I think you're going to have some studs on the D line. I don't know that Levy's going to be around, because I think that he's probably going to be a, 3-year guy at most at Oklahoma, at most. I think maybe after 1 or 2 years, he could be a head coach, because that just fits him. I don't know that and I don't know where Oklahoma would go for OC at that point. Maybe Kel Gundy finally, gets that chance to, piggyback off what he did in the Alamo Bowl. I don't know, but I still think Oklahoma is competing for, playoffs and national titles within 5 years. Now, I could be wrong, but I think more NILs. And look, I'm telling you right now, the donors at Oklahoma are doing more things than you all think they're doing. I promise you, there's things going on behind the scenes that haven't been made public yet, and won't be made public yet until the university is ready, until they find places to do certain things. And, let's just put it this way. There's more money flowing into the athletic department donation wise than at any point in time that I can remember. Venables has sparked so much interest in the athletic department. Plus you got Patty Gasso, plus you got what the baseball program's doing. You got Porter Moser. I mean, and obviously you got the women's basketball coach, Jenny, how do you say, Braznek or whatever?
Baranchek.
Baranchek. I can never pronounce her name right. Like it's so spelled so weird. But all these coaches have sparked a major interest in the athletic department and donation wise. Plus, oil is $115 a barrel in the state. You know, that kind of people have money falling out of their pockets in the state of Oklahoma right now because of that. So when oil's hot, donations are hot as well. And I think Oklahoma's going to piggyback on the momentum they have, and they're going to continue to do that because I was told at the Sooners in the Desert that, I mean, people were like just ready to write checks after. And same with a lot of these, you know, Sooner Caravan events. People are just like throwing like there's bam, 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 take it. Let's go. So I think you'll see more NIL stuff pop up as far as Oklahoma in regards to Oklahoma. I don't think one Oklahoma is going to be the only collective you see. I don't. I think you're going to see multiple collectives. As long as the money's hot, Oklahoma is going to do all they can to make sure that they get the best players. They just got to fit the culture. That's it. But I think they're going to be compete for the. What do you think, Parker? Do you agree with me on that?
I do. Here's the thing, though, Brandon. So much happens that the casual fan doesn't see, and all the casual fan sees in general is, oh, Texas A&M got another elite recruit. Oh, Alabama, Miami, Arkansas got another elite recruit. Well, they must be leaps and bounds ahead of Oklahoma financially with NIL. And look, I'm not saying that narrative is completely bogus, because there are some schools that have taken the lead and been very proactive in making sure that their NIL efforts got up to speed very quickly. Texas A&M was one of the early adopters. No shock to anybody there if you look at the way that they recruited in the 2022 class. But Oklahoma isn't going to become a dinosaur. That's the reason Brent Venables came to Oklahoma, is because, and that's the reason why he turned down so many jobs over the years. By the way, how brilliant does he look now for turning down that Auburn job in retrospect? But Brent Venables took the job at the University of Oklahoma because he knew what he could build there.
Right.
With how forward thinking everybody is in that department, not just Venables, but Thad Turnipseed, J.R. Sandlin, Woody Glass. I mean, you think about all the big wigs, the proverbial big wigs in the athletic department, and it starts right at the top with Joe Castiglione. Everybody is committed to making Oklahoma a powerhouse in the long run. They're not going to allow the Sooners to fall behind, whatever that looks like, whether it's NIL, whether it's facilities, what have you. And as you mentioned, Brandon, yes, donations are flying in. There's going to be plenty of money to work with, and the facilities are going to get upgraded. There's going to be new construction.
They're already doing it.
There's going to be work done to ensure that once Oklahoma makes the transition to the SEC, they are 100% on par with all of the other programs in the SEC as far as facilities and infrastructure. So when you look at the way that the game is evolving with NIL, can you make the argument that Oklahoma's behind the curve? Sure. I think that's fair. But I also think it's fair to acknowledge that when you look at the leadership right now at the University of Oklahoma, they're going to do everything that's in their power to make sure that Oklahoma doesn't stay behind the curve. And it's also okay to acknowledge that, you know what? There are bigger fish to fry right now than NIL, because as I have said time and time again, there is no empirical data yet to suggest that buying a recruiting class is going to result in success on the football field. There's no data to suggest that. Now, you look at the recruiting rankings and you look at the class that Texas A&M brought in last year, and you think, well, okay, how is Oklahoma going to be able to compete with that? And my response to that is, we are entering a new era of college football. And yes, stars matter, but they aren't everything. Development still matters too. You can't always throw a bunch of 5 stars on the same football field and expect that they're going to go win you a national championship. That's not all that goes into it. And that's going to be one of the great fallacies of assembling a roster with NIL as a driving force behind the recruiting pitch. So I would say, you know what?
Angry. There's going to be a lot of angst behind and jealousy. That's going to hinder your locker room. And that's where the culture comes in.
Yeah. I think Oklahoma is doing the right thing right now, which is, you know what, focus on facilities first. The stuff that needs to get improved, needs to get upgraded, make that happen so that when you make the transition to the SEC, you can sell that as part of your recruiting pitch. You can go to any other SEC school, and guess what? We're going to have the exact same stuff, or we're going to have better stuff. We are not inferior to any of these other programs in that regard. That's the type of thing you're going to be able to tell a recruit when they set foot on your campus. In the meantime, in the interim, wait and see how teams like Texas A&M and Miami and Nebraska and Arkansas fare. And you know what? If through NIL, they're able to take their programs to a level that they haven't yet attained or haven't attained in some time, then you start playing the game. But you can afford to be a little bit behind the curve, proverbially speaking, here with regard to NIL when you're as big of a football brand and as big of an institution as the University of Oklahoma. You can. What you can't afford to be behind on is facilities when you make the transition to the SEC. So I look at the complete picture right now and I say, yes, Joe Castiglione has his affairs in order and he's got his priorities straight. I'm not worried.
Georgia not playing the NIL game the way some are doing it. Alabama not playing the NIL game the way some are doing it. Oklahoma not playing the NIL game the way some are doing it. What do those three programs have in common? They are perennial winners, right? They win. They're usually in the playoffs. They can sell their brand and they can sell development, NFL, all that stuff more than these teams that are buying these players can. And that's a fact because a lot of those programs that are trying to use the NIL to help them recruit better aren't putting developing guys into the league that are, 3-star guys. A lot of 3-star Oklahoma players and even Alabama and Georgia players end up in the NFL. Same with Clemson. They're not hugely playing NIL stuff. Like this is you look at all the huge top programs and they're not playing the NIL game the way the programs that are trying to get up to the level of the ones that aren't playing NIL the way that fans want them to. Now, at the same time, Oklahoma is still doing things. And I know somebody asked, well, is the one Oklahoma still in play then? I mean, they're tweeting about it. There's articles still being wrote about it. So I'm assuming, I haven't heard that it's gone defunct or anything. So, and I just don't think Barry Switzer would put his name on something and brand it as, if it wasn't going to be successful. I just can't see him doing that. So I think Oklahoma is in a good spot NIL wise. They're not overdoing it. They're not underdoing it. They're playing the game. And obviously if you play at the University of Oklahoma, you're going to get your own individual NIL stuff anyways, because you are an OU football player. I mean, you see that across the board with a lot of these guys making extra money on the side. So it's not just, I think people instantly look at it and go, well, they're not going to pay them up front, so they're going to lose out on these guys. Well, a lot of these programs like Oklahoma, Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State, they can go in and say, you know what, you may not make $3 million from us NIL when you show up here, but we can almost guarantee you're going to end up making way more than that when you get in the NFL. So, and that's going to last a lot longer than the 3 years you're here at Oklahoma. So you can pick or choose college money or NFL money. You can go not be developed somewhere else and you can get developed in Norman. That's going to be their selling pitch for a lot of these guys. And then when they get there, they'll go, oh, by the way, you're making $50,000, $60,000 a year plus your per diem. So chances are you're making 6 figures a year anyways, walking away $300,000-$400,000 before you ever graduate the University of Oklahoma. It's not a bad gig, especially when you're 18, 19, 20 years old. I would do it. Wouldn't have to ask me twice, but they haven't asked me. Anyways, I guess let's do it. Parker, ChampU BBQ. How many more commits does OU have by Wednesday following the ChampU BBQ?
Ooh, okay. Now I really got to lay it on the table here. I'm going to look through the list and I'll give you names who I think is committed by Wednesday following the ChampU BBQ. I am going to say as I look through this list, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'll say Bryson Sanders pulls the trigger. I'll say Sanders has a good enough time at the ChampU BBQ that he decides to shut it down. I'll say the same for PJ Adebawore. I'll say he does the same thing.
That's 2.
So that's 2.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know for me if there's a third. I might say 2 is what they get. But
I got one.
But here's the thing: when you get this many guys all on campus at the same time, there's a good chance somebody pops. Whether that's a Phil Picciotti, Musa Kane.
Screw you, Parker.
Did I? Were you going to bring up Musa Kane?
Yeah, but you didn't. You didn't name another guy that I wanted to name. Go ahead, keep going.
Hey, no. Name him before I steal him.
Jacoby Johnson.
Yep. There you go.
I know he's got an official setup for Michigan, but does it happen after this? I know he's taken officials to Stanford. He's taken officials he's been to Alabama already. I don't know if it's official. I think it was unofficial, but he's been to all those places, and I'm interested to see if the visit to Michigan happens after the ChampU BBQ visit, because Oklahoma's pressing really hard to land him. I'll say the same for Makari Vickers. Does he get out of Norman without committing? He visited Oklahoma, and there's a lot of people that feel Oklahoma's in a really good spot for Makari Vickers. I don't know that I would go as far as to say that he's going to end up committing or anything like that. But people have to remember that when he took his last visit, he was there for 5 days. 5 days, like Wednesday through Monday. He was there the whole time. So I would throw him out. I think
the chat's real high on Jaquazi Petaway. What do you think?
He would be an outlier. If that happened, I think if he committed, it would shock me if he committed that early, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I agree. That would be a bombshell, but man, wouldn't
that
that
heck
give
of a
Oklahoma
bombshell? Oh my goodness.
Top 50 national player, regardless of position, commits out of nowhere to Oklahoma. Yeah. That'd be good for the brand.
It wouldn't hurt, would it? I think another guy that I would throw out there, Samuel Masigo. Yeah. I don't know that he gets out of Norman without committing. I know he's got other visits lined up, but I just can't.
He's got one other visit lined up. It's Florida.
Yeah, but does that happen?
I'm not convinced it does. And I think I said that like a month ago after I went down to meet with Samuel Masigo. At that point, it just became evident that, you know what? This kid loves OU. His family loves OU. OU loves him. It all makes sense. Why wait? He's already been to Oklahoma twice this year. This will be visit number 3. If he feels comfortable. Yeah, he's also the type of kid where, he's not going to mess around where he doesn't have to. And so there's a very good chance he's committed by this time next week. Am I counting on it? No. I think the best odds for Oklahoma to secure a commitment by next week, that if you're looking at an individual player, it's probably Jacoby Johnson. But man, a decision from Bryson Sanders is coming one way or another very expediently after the ChampU BBQ. PJ Adebayore's clock is ticking. The clock is ticking for Samuel Masigo too. A lot of these guys are winding down to decision time. And while there may not be an exact date set, it makes you wonder, is this the weekend where the switch flips in their heads?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think Oklahoma walks away. Okay, so I think we've counted unofficially and officially visiting. I think there's like 31, 32 players supposed to be on campus. I think of that 31, 32, I think Oklahoma lands 17 of them.
Have you gone through like itemized?
No, I'm in my head, I kind of went through the names of who they are. And I'm like, oh yeah, I think Oklahoma has a really good shot for this person. 17. I think I know it's just kind of a number. I would say, I'll range it down. I'll say 13. They land 13 of the 30, 31, and 32 guys that visit. You're going through the list right now, aren't you?
I'm going through it right now. 15 of these guys are on the class or on the mock class that I'm going to be dropping in the next couple of days. 15.
Okay, so you're about where I'm at then. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Between 13 and 17. Yeah. Okay. No, we're right on the net. I think we both I bet we agree on all the same ones too.
Probably.
Oh, well. Cool. I guess that's going to do it for this, right?
Yeah, I guess we're good.
Yeah. Hey, if you guys aren't OU Insider member, look, we've got so much stuff coming. I'm going to be dropping, just like him. I've got my class prediction coming before the ChampU BBQ. I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to work on doing it. I've got my Florida stuff, the more Florida stuff coming. We've got all the camp stuff coming. There's a lot of Oklahoma team camps going on that we're going to be at. We'll have notes from that. We got ChampU BBQ coming up. There's 7-on-7 tournament, state tournament, regional tournament down in College Station that I will be attending. My son's playing in it, but there's also a lot of recruits that are going to be down in there playing in that tournament. So I'll be down there covering that as well. Parker will be down in Dallas covering a lot of big camps, getting to know some other people down there that, may or may not already be on the radar type deal. So we'll have all that coverage for you coming for you guys, plus all the visits through June and July. I mean, I know dead period starts and then it kicks back up after a few weeks in July. So we're going to have all that plus all the information from team camps, summer workouts, all this stuff. We've got so much coming for you guys on OU Insider. So if you're not a member right now, I think it's the best time to sign up. I think $75 gets you 1 year if you sign up right now. Plus you're going to get Paramount Plus. And if you love the offer, you've got Halo, you've got Top Gun stuff on there. The offer. If you haven't watched The Offer, I'm telling everybody you need to watch the show. It's freaking amazing. It's about the making of The Godfather and the troubles that they went through are unbelievable. It's a true story. It's really awesome. Great actors. There's a whole bunch of stuff. 1883. There's more. I think it's like 1931 that's coming. It's like another playoff of 1883, which is another Yellowstone deal. So there's so much coming on Paramount Plus that you want to be a part of, and you get that if you sign up full price OU Insider. So basically, you get like $230 in value just for signing up. You get Paramount plus OU Insider and all of 247 Sports. You get to go to every website. So if you want to go check out what Alabama's doing, what Texas is doing, Oklahoma State, Texas A&M, it doesn't matter. USC, you can go check out their board and see all their information as well, and be pretty much the most knowledgeable person when it comes to recruiting in college football because you're on 247 Sports. So yeah, we hope to see you guys on there. We've been growing super, super fast. We continue to break records, and we can't do that without you guys. You guys, we thank you every time we do this YouTube live and podcast, and we truly mean it. Like, you guys have been a blessing to us. We can't thank you guys enough, and it's been so great to be able to do this for you all. So that's going to do it, man. You got anything else, Parker?
I got nothing, man. Lot coming this week, obviously, with the ChampU BBQ on deck, and we'll have a full visitor list posted in the next 24 hours on OU Insider VIP. So,
Parker and I have been texting about who we have and who we don't have and all that type of stuff. So we should have. I'll probably let Parker post it up, but yeah, we should have it all figured out within the next 24 hours for you guys, and we'll update it as things change too. So can't wait to have all that information for you guys on the OU Insider VIP board. My name is Brandon Drumm for Parker Thune, Spencer Forsythe behind the keys over there. Thank you all for watching this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor YouTube Live. You all have a blessed night.